Hello, and welcome to IEDU Day 5 Business Related English. Today, there are actually two class objectives. The first one is to learn how to write a resume, which is sometimes called a CV, in English. The second one is some resume tips that will hopefully help you write a better resume. And now let's talk about writing a resume. What is a resume? Well, a resume is one way for an employer to be able to see your biographical or contact information so that they actually know who you are and how to get a hold of you, but it's more than that. It actually also talks about the educational background you have. This is important to show that you've actually completed what degree and how, experience that maybe you have that will help you in your position, and also positions of responsibility. Positions of responsibility are tied with showing that you've been able to take on some duties that might be beyond something that other people have done, and also other factors that could affect the job. This is one way that companies weed out people who they don't want to work with to be able to pick the best people to come into interviews. So this is like a first impression, which we talked about in interviews, but this is to get you the interview, you need this first impression. And so by having a strong resume, you are able to telegraph to the company that you would be perfect for them. So in this, think about how you can word things to make things sound good and to help you try to get a better job. First, biographical contact information. You always want to include this type of information because it actually gives the company a lot of information about you, how to contact you, how old you are, these kind of things. Now, name. Your name should be a little bit bigger, and the reason for having the name be a little bit bigger is that the company would be able to see your name, and you're wanting them to remember this. So this is like the title, and you want them to remember your name because this is important to standing out from other people. Date of birth. Now, in Korea, you do put date of birth on this, and if you're actually applying for a job in the United States, date of birth would be optional. So it depends on where you're applying on whether or not you would actually include the date of birth. Make sure if you do include it, that it's month, day, and year. Current address and phone number. Why is this important? Well, you want them to be able to get a hold of you. If the company likes your resume and they can't contact you, it would be impossible for them to give you a job. So you need to have a current address and phone number. This is also related with email that's at the bottom. So they have to be able to get a hold of you or they won't be able to hire you. You have to include the date that you will be leaving if it is known. So if you're leaving this current address, say you're a student at Dongguk University and you live in the dormitory, and you're receiving mail there, or you have rented an apartment close to campus. So after you graduate, you would be leaving that site and moving somewhere else, maybe back to the permanent address. You need to include the date that tells the employer about that. Next, permanent address. This is the site where you can always receive mail. Possibly this is your parents' address or the relative that you live with, or someone that you trust to get you your mail quickly and well. Finally, an email address. Now, the email address is probably how most companies are contacting people, either by phone or email now. But a word of warning about email addresses. The email address that you use should be professional. Also, make sure that you check the email that you give out on a regular basis. I have had students before who have emailed me questions, and when I responded to them, they didn't read it for a week or two, sometimes even coming and asking me about it, and I emailed you back. And they were like, oh, I haven't checked my email. That does not look professional. Also, be careful about your email name. Probably the best email name is just your name with some series of numbers behind it. So instead of having a cute name or a nickname, actually just have a professional looking email account. Make a new email account just for applying for things is another way to do it. So if you are doing one, maybe for instance, you would have hong.gil.dong123@naver.com or something like that. That sounds professional if, well, Hong-Gil-Dong is actually your name. Do not have an email like Cutie Angel, or I had one student actually used an email that sent me, and I believe it was super cute. This is not sending the right message. This is not a professional image. Emails like Snoopy or Snoopy113 or something like that. This is not going to catch their attention. This is actually going to turn them off. So if you have to even make a new email that has a professional sounding thing. One of my emails is just Copeland Chuck. My nickname is Chuck. I probably should change that to Copeland Charles or Charles.Copeland, and this would make it much more professional for the employer to look at. Also, a photo. Try to pick something professional. If you're not sure what a professional photo should look like, go in and have a passport photo taken. Do not just take a photo of you drinking beer at a local Hoff, because this will not help you get the job. So what you're doing is you're trying to put on a business persona. So cutesy email names and photos of you that are not professional will hurt your chances of getting an interview. Next, education. Start with the highest degree first. So if you're graduating from Dongguk University with a bachelor's degree, that would be the first thing you mention. And some do mention high school, so some resumes actually do mention high school, but only do this if it is a famous high school that you went to. So if you went to an international high school maybe, or you went to a foreign high school that has a very good reputation, then you could mention high school. If not, do not include it. If you just went to a neighborhood high school and it's not highly ranked, probably not the best idea to actually include this on your list. Dongguk University is strong enough by itself. You need the date. If you have not graduated, put down the date that you expect to graduate. So, when did you start? So, did you start in 2011, 2012? What year did you start? 2010? Degree? Is it a Bachelor's of Arts? A Bachelor of Fine Arts? A Bachelor of Science? They are all slightly different, so find out exactly which one you have as you're going into English. Now, in an English resume. Now, a 4-year degree would be considered a bachelor's degree, but there are different bachelor degrees. So check with your department if you're not sure, and there may not be the distinction in Korean. Probably if you're in a science, engineering related, it would be a Bachelor of Science. If you're talking about music, art, ballet, liberal arts, it would be a Bachelor of Arts, a BA. Okay, and then the major. What major did you study? Also, if you have a second major or a minor, you can include that because it shows you as a more well-rounded person. The school's name? Okay, obviously, Dankook University. You can't just say, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering with a specialization in energy and energy efficiency. I don't know exactly if that would be a specialty or not. And you don't say what university, you're not going to get an interview. Dankook University. When you're applying for a job, maybe that's tied with mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, some of the people who are hiring for engineering firms might know professors at that university, and they do call and check sometimes. Also, expected graduation date. So if you have not received the diploma, you need to include an expected graduation date that you expect to get your diploma. As you're taking an IEDU course, you probably have not finished yet. This might be one of the requirements you need. Moving forward, here is an example. February 2017, expected. So I put that as expected graduation date, not that it's complete. BS in International Trade at Dankook University. This would be one example. If you have a minor in economics or minor in accounting, this would actually help. Minor in English language and literature would also help. Okay, so this is an example of what it might look like. Work history. Now, you want to start with your most recent job. There is a chance that maybe you've never had a part-time job, in which case you would not include this section. So you would start with your most recent job and go backwards through your job history. So it doesn't matter what the jobs are. They just want to see that you've worked somewhere. They might call that company to find out what quality of work you are. They might also be checking to make sure you have not had too many jobs. Like you can't keep a job. So you work one place for 1 month, another place for 1 month, another place for 1 month. That might be a question in the interview. Why did you change jobs so often? Okay? Once you have worked enough places, you can drop some and just list jobs in the field you are applying for. So for instance, on my resume, I would only include education-related work, teaching-related work. I would not include some of my part-time jobs from university, which happened 25 or 30 years ago. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going to be looking at it from the standpoint of where are you working? Are you able to hold a job? What responsibilities did you have? So you would have date started, date finished. This shows how long you worked there. Do not lie. If you only worked at a place for 1 month, put it down at 1 month. You might have a question about it. Just be ready to answer it. Maybe even my workload at university became very hard, so I had to quit the job, or I found a job and then I went back home for summer vacation. These would be good excuses for having a job for 1 or 2 months. What job did you have? So what position did you work at? Okay, if you're working at McDonald's, you're probably not a manager, maybe. And so maybe you're a line cook, or maybe you work as a cash register checkout person, or maybe you were a delivery person for a pizza place. That's the job. What company did you work for? And then write a few sentences that describe what you did in this job. You can make it sound good, but do not lie. Here is an example, and let's kind of go through this. So date started, December 2015. Okay, so you pick a date. So this was roughly a year ago from when I made this video, which is December 2016. Up to present. Okay, so a 1 year. What position did you hold? Intern. Okay, so you were an intern at name of company, Big Electronics Incorporated. Okay, whatever the exact name of the company is, include that. If the company's name is in Korean, anglicize the letters. So if the name of the company is Hongsam Inc., okay, you would write HONGSAM, not in Korean. Okay, and then write a few sentences that describe what you did. You want to show that the kind of work you were doing and the responsibilities that you were given in this job, because this will help show what you've done to the employers. So in this position, I assisted the full-time employees with the day-to-day tasks of the accounting department of the company. Okay, so you've helped with accounting department duties. Probably not going to be doing audits of big companies. That's fine. Okay, but you kind of understand some entry-level things for an accounting department. I was trained on data entry. Okay, there you go. So data entry. And used XXXXXX accounting program. I actually list the accounting program. And this will show them what you did. Data entry in an accounting department using this accounting program. Now, if they use the same accounting program, they don't have to worry about training you as much. Probably they might head for an interview. I also acted as a personal assistant for the department, answering phones and taking messages. So you're showing that you did some of the grunt work that goes along with having a job. So when you think about this, you're not lying about anything. If you did data entry, you did data entry. If you acted as a personal assistant, okay, don't just say, well, I had to answer calls and, take messages for the other workers. No, personal assistant is basically what that is, or secretary for the department. Personal assistant sounds better. It's the same thing, okay? So this gives you an idea of what you should have for each job, even if it is not a great job. Even if you are working at, say, a bakery, and you're stocking shelves, and you're working the cash register, write that down. If you're working the cash register, it means you're responsible with money. If you're stocking shelves, it shows that you're doing work, and include what you needed to do, okay? Probably you're not auditing the things. Maybe you are doing a review of the money that's going through the store, but probably that's the owner's task, depending on what, your major is. Okay? So this is an example of what you would have. Do not lie, but try to make it sound good and include the work that you did, because every kind of work that you do is going to show some dedication. Even if you are working in a really bad job, it will still show the work that you did and how it functions and how you can function in their company. Next, position of responsibility. Okay, this is the same as work history kind of thing. You need the dates, position, and an explanation of the position. This is to show how active you were at the university. This is also where you could put volunteer work. Now, Dongguk does require a certain number of hours of volunteer work, so you could include this in this section. So this is trying to round you out as a person. Maybe you didn't hold as many jobs, but you were active at the university. That would be fine. So include the dates that you did it, what position. Maybe it was club officer, student council, volunteer worker, anything that will help you stand out. You want to show this to make you better than all of the other people who are applying, or at least good enough to get an interview over other people. So stay professional. Explain the position, but don't lie about it. So let's go over an example of this. December 2015 to December 2016. So maybe this is your 4th year as a university student. Student council representative. Okay? So this is a very good one. Do not lie about it because this is something they can check. I was elected as the student representative for the mechanical engineering department. What does this show? It shows you were willing to take a position of responsibility within your department. It also shows that you were popular with the other students. So this is a good thing to have. So if you did anything with student council, student government, you should definitely include this in positions of responsibility. Volunteer work is another very, very strong one, okay, because it shows your dedication. And if you did a little bit more than other people, it makes it look even better. Then explain what you did. In this position, I attended the student body council, and I made sure that the voice of the mechanical engineers was heard by the administration. Okay? So, whatever you do with this. When I was in university, I was part of the student council. I was a representative from my department, and I was actually put on the funding committee, and we gave out funds to the different club activities for the school year that the university had. I would definitely have included that in positions of responsibility on my earlier resumes. I don't include it now because I have enough things that are related to education, which is where my job is. Okay? So once again, if you get enough, you can actually weed some out. Next, other things. Other things, this is where you list items that might help you in your job. Couple of things. Number one, make sure it is helpful. Okay? A certificate and paper folding will probably not be too helpful in getting a job in mechanical engineering, but it might show some artistic side that maybe they are looking for. So you never know what they want. So some things that you might include here. Now, first of all, you do need proof you have the skill. So if you're talking about a skill type position, you will need to be able to prove that you did it, especially here in Korea where they actually do offer certificates for computer skills and things like that. So skills, computer, possibly, Microsoft Office. I have a certificate in Microsoft Office including Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and whatever else it is, okay? So include that. If you're certified in some software that is specialized to your field, include that. If you had to use, say, CAD/CAM, for instance, in your degree, you could include that even without the certificate because you used it in classes. You might include a brief description that you don't have a certificate, but you had to use it for these classes. Typing speed, public speaking. Possibly you entered a public speaking contest. Companies like people who are not afraid to speak in front of others. Another thing, ability. Music. Why would you include music? Because it shows dedication. It also shows work. It also shows that you have a position where you can actually relieve stress, for instance. Driver's license. If you have a special driver's license, like a large vehicle driver's license, that could actually be important. Maybe they don't have a job in your specific area right now, but they need somebody to part-time drive a truck and do your position. They might end up multitasking you as a starting position. Any accomplishments you have. Awards. These will show that you stand out. If you won any department awards, if you entered any contest and won awards for that. It makes you look good. For instance, Don Gook had some students that have entered and won Holt Prize awards. This would show some dedication to that process and that you've actually started thinking about doing things in that field. And finally, language. This might be where you include a TOEIC score. Please think about if they require it, fine. If it's a really low score, probably not be the best idea to include it in this position. Okay? So that's the other things that should be listed somewhere on your resume. References. Finally, you do need to find a list of people who will vouch for you. What I mean by vouch for you is someone that you feel comfortable with the company calling that will talk about what you did in that position. Okay? Select these carefully. Try to pick someone who you know well. Pick someone that can talk about your job. Now, I work in the English department here. The general required English department here. And I have had students come and ask me to be a reference. I have said no to several of them. The reason why is because I do not think that I would be able to help them, even students that I had in class. Now, if I had them in class enough, I would act as a reference. If they took my elective classes, I would act as a reference, and that could show English ability, improvement, dedication to work, and to learn a new language. But I had some student come in and ask me to be a reference for him who I'd never met before, and I flat out said no, because it would not help him. Most people will not lie on a reference. If the company had contacted me, I would have said, this student came in and asked me to be his reference. I've known him 15 minutes, and your guess is as good as mine. He's not getting an interview. Okay? You should pick someone who is a professor who you really like, maybe a mentor-type professor in your own department, someone who you've taken several classes with. Approach them and ask them if they would be willing to be a reference. Okay? And this will help you because there's a good chance that maybe the person who's interviewing you will check these references, and maybe they know someone who teaches in that department. They might actually know the reference. So the job requires you to turn them in. Some jobs do want the names and email addresses on the resume. Some jobs will only ask for them if they need them. So check with the job you're applying for. You can include references upon request if they do not require them. They might just ask for them if they're really interested. Try to have 4 or 5 lined up. I suggest you find 1 or 2 that are professors in the department that you are studying in, and that you also find somewhere in the neighborhood of, 2 or 3 from part-time jobs, like a boss at a part-time job, a boss at an internship, someone who is tied with the volunteer work you did, an administrator who's tied with the student government, an advisor. These kind of people are the type of people that should be your resumes. It should not be your mother and father. Of course, they expect mothers and fathers to give good, make glowing comments, but somebody who they can trust the comments from. Now, for your homework, for this section, you should write a resume. There is a form online. There is a Microsoft Word document online that you can just fill in. There are samples in this video. You can roll it back and pause the video to look at those. Upload it to the LMS. It is worth 20 points. It will be graded upon completion, So we'll check to see that you did it, and we'll also check that you have all the parts there, but we won't make specific comments on it. We want you to have an English resume ready in case some company asks for it at some point in the future. Thank you, and this concludes this part of Day 5.